Welcome to Pillow Talk Dreams, where every night becomes a story and every story leads you to peace. If you love calm voices, gentle journeys, and stories that help you drift into dreams, then don't forget to subscribe and let your nights be a little softer. Now close your eyes and let the story begin. The girl from my dreams, the night she appeared, it was one of those nights when the city slept, but Ian couldn't. He lay awake, eyes fixed on the slow rotation of the ceiling fan. The hum of its blades was the only sound in his small apartment, echoing against the silence that had become too familiar. Outside, the streetlights cast a pale orange glow through his window, painting quiet patterns across the walls. Ian turned to his side, checking his phone, 2:47 a.m. messages unread, notifications untouched. Just another night of scrolling through a life that felt increasingly empty. He wasn't unhappy, not exactly. His job paid well enough, his friends checked in sometimes, and his days moved forward like clockwork. But every night when the noise of the world faded, he felt the same question echo inside. Is this it? He closed his eyes. The city's hum began to blur, the ticking of the clock slowing, until suddenly everything was still. And then he saw her. She stood in a vast open field, the moon hanging like a lantern above them. The air shimmered faintly, as if the stars were breathing. The grass brushed against his feet, cool and soft. The girl wore a white dress that moved like mist around her. Her hair, dark and flowing, fell across her shoulders as the wind played gently through it. But what struck Ian most were her eyes, deep, calm, filled with the quiet of oceans. For a moment neither of them spoke. He stepped closer. "Who are you?" The girl smiled, her lips barely parting. "You already know me." Her voice, it was like a melody he had once heard and forgotten, now remembered in the heart instead of the mind. Before he could say anything more, she turned, walking toward a soft light that flickered on the horizon. "Wait," he called, "please tell me your name." But she didn't stop. The light grew brighter, washing over everything, and then, just like that, she was gone. Ian's eyes flew open. He was back in his bed, the ceiling fan spinning above. His chest rose and fell quickly. He could still feel the cool wind of that field, still see the softness of her smile. For a long time he sat up, staring into the dim light of his room. A dream, he told himself. Just a dream. And yet it hadn't felt like one. The next morning, Ian couldn't shake her from his mind. At work, he found himself lost in thought, sketching her eyes on the corner of his notepad during meetings, replaying that voice that seemed to hum in his ears. When night came again, he waited for sleep like a lover waits for a letter. He wanted to see her again, to ask who she was, why she felt so familiar. But that night there was only darkness and silence. Still, as he drifted, a faint whisper reached him, not from the world outside, but from somewhere deep within. "You'll find me when you're ready to believe it's not just a dream." Ian's breath caught. He opened his eyes into the dark, but this time he smiled. Because for the first time in a long while, he wanted to fall asleep again. The whisper returns the next few days blurred into each other. Ian tried to shake the dream off. He told himself it was nothing, just a trick of the mind. But every time he blinked, he saw her again. The girl with the moon in her eyes. The voice that felt like a memory. At work, his colleagues noticed the distraction. "Bro, you look lost," his friend Samir joked over lunch. "New crush or new project?" Ian laughed lightly, trying to hide the truth. "Neither. Just haven't been sleeping much." But inside he wanted to say, "I think I met someone. Not here, not in this world, but somewhere else." That night when he came home, he made a cup of tea and sat by the window. The rain had begun to fall softly, streaking the glass with silver threads. He looked at the clouds, wondering if she was out there, wherever dreams go when we wake up. When he finally went to bed, he whispered, almost shyly, "If you're real, come back." He didn't know why he said it. He just felt he had to. The dream returns this time. The dream didn't begin in the field. It started in a narrow street, glowing under the golden light of sunset. Ian stood there, barefoot, hearing the quiet echo of distant laughter. Then from behind him came a voice. "You kept your promise." He turned. She was there, the girl, smiling this time closer, clearer, as if the dream itself had moved them toward each other. "I thought you wouldn't come back," Ian said. "You called me," she replied, stepping closer. "You said if you're real, come back, so I did." Her presence felt like warmth, soft, familiar, and yet unreal. "What's your name?" he asked again. She tilted her head slightly. "Do names matter in dreams?" "They do when you can't stop thinking about the person," he said quietly. That made her pause. Her eyes softened and she whispered, "Alina." The name fell through the air like snow. "Alina," Ian repeated, as if memorizing the sound forever. "Why do I keep seeing you?" She looked away, her gaze drifting toward the light at the end of the street. "Because your heart remembers what your mind forgot." Before Ian could ask what she meant, the world around them began to fade, the light dimming, the air turning thin. "Wait, Alina." She reached out, fingertips brushing his hand. For the first time he felt her warm, real, alive. Then he woke up. Between dreams and reality it was 5:10 a.m. The sky was gray, morning light creeping through the curtains. Ian sat up, heart pounding, whispering her name. "Alina." It sounded like music in the stillness. The dream had changed something inside him. She wasn't just a vision anymore, she was someone. Someone he couldn't let go of. That day, while driving to work, something strange happened. As he stopped at a traffic light, he saw a poster pasted on a nearby wall, an art exhibition announcement. "Echoes of Dreams" paintings by Alina Rahman. His breath froze. The same name. He blinked, thinking it had to be a coincidence. But something inside him, the same quiet voice that whispered in the dream, said, "Go." The next evening he went. The art gallery was small, tucked between cafes. The air smelled of fresh paint and rain. Soft music played in the background as people admired the paintings, all filled with twilight skies, reflections and faces that seemed almost alive. And then there she was, standing near a painting of a moonlit field, the field from his dream. Her hair was tied loosely, and she was laughing softly with a visitor. But when her eyes met his, everything stopped. For a long second, neither of them moved. Alina's smile faded, replaced by quiet wonder. She excused herself from the group and slowly walked toward him. "You," she whispered. "You're real." "So are you," Ian said, his voice trembling. They stood there, dream and reality colliding, hearts remembering something their minds couldn't explain. The art of remembering for a moment. The noise of the gallery faded. The air around them thickened, filled with something unspoken, a recognition beyond words. Ian and Alina stood face to face, caught in a silence that felt both strange and familiar. "You're Ian," she said slowly, her voice trembling as though she was piecing together a memory. He frowned, confused. "Wait, how do you know my name?" Her eyes softened. I've seen you before." Ian's pulse quickened. "In your dreams," she nodded. "Every night for the last 2 weeks. You were always there, standing in a field looking for someone." A chill ran through him. "That was my dream too." They stared at each other, both realizing this wasn't coincidence. The same dream, the same field, the same longing, shared by two souls who had never met before. The gallery lights dimmed slightly as evening fell. Ian and Alina sat near a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. The hum of people chatting around them faded into background noise. Alina looked down at her hands, fidgeting with a bracelet. "I paint what I dream," she said softly. "Every painting in this exhibition is from a dream I've had." Ian followed her gaze to the painting beside them, the moonlit field, painted with astonishing detail. The same silver grass, the same gentle sky. "When I first saw you there," she continued, "you looked lost. I tried to speak to you, but every time I got close I woke up." He smiled faintly. "I felt the same. Every time I reached for you, you disappeared." Alina looked up, meeting his eyes. "And now we're here." "Now we're here," Ian repeated, his voice barely a whisper. The words hung between them like the faint glow of starlight. Over the next few days, they began to meet often, not planned, but as if pulled together by something invisible. Coffee after work turned into long evening walks. They talked about art, music, dreams, and loneliness. Alina told him she believed dreams were reflections of unfinished connections, the souls we were meant to meet, places we were meant to go, memories waiting to be found again. Ian wasn't sure he believed in destiny, but every time he looked at her, he felt like he was standing in that same dream, peaceful, endless, whole. One rainy evening, they met at her art studio. The smell of paint and turpentine filled the air, and unfinished canvases leaned against the walls. She was painting when he entered, a soft melody playing in the background. The painting showed two silhouettes standing under a streetlight, their shadows blending together. Ian stepped closer. "That's us, isn't it?" Alina smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe it's who we were before." He frowned. "Before," she put down the brush. "Sometimes I feel like I've known you for years, not weeks, like our souls remember each other even if our minds don't." He took a slow breath, looking at her face illuminated by the golden light. "Then maybe we met in another life," he whispered. Alina laughed softly. "Or maybe we never stopped meeting, we just forgot for a while." Her words wrapped around him like warmth in the cold. He didn't know if it was fate or just a beautiful coincidence, but for the first time in years, Ian felt alive. Later that night, after she left, Ian stayed behind in the studio. He looked at her paintings, each one more haunting than the last. In the corner of the room, he noticed a smaller canvas turned against the wall. Curious, he flipped it around. His breath caught. It was a portrait of himself standing beneath a moon, eyes closed, as if listening to something only he could hear. And at the bottom of the painting, in small cursive letters, she had written, "The boy from my dreams." Ian couldn't sleep that night. The city outside was alive, but he was somewhere between the world of waking and the realm of dreams, waiting for her to appear again. And she did. This time the dream was brighter, clearer than ever before. The moonlit field again, only now she was standing closer. "I saw your painting," he whispered. She smiled. "And I saw you looking at it." He reached for her hand. This time when he touched her, she didn't vanish. "Alina," he said, "why do we keep meeting here?" She looked at him, her eyes glimmering like the night sky. "Because this is where we first found each other before life began again." A soft wind passed between them. "Then what happens now?" he asked. "Now," she said, "we remember." The world began to shimmer around them, lights twisting, grass swaying as if time itself was breathing. And for the first time, Ian felt everything, her warmth, her heartbeat, her love, as real as the air around him. When he woke, he was smiling. Because somewhere, somehow, a piece of him had remembered what his heart already knew: he had found her. The past we forgot. It had been 3 weeks since Ian met Alina, or perhaps since he found her again. They had fallen into an easy rhythm, meeting almost every day. Sometimes at the cafe near her gallery, sometimes at the park where the breeze carried the scent of roses and rain. To anyone watching, they looked like two people newly in love. But to them, It felt deeper, older, almost inevitable. Ian didn't understand it, yet he didn't question it either. He just knew that every time she smiled, his heart remembered something it couldn't explain. The dream that changed everything. One night, Ian fell asleep with her voice still echoing in his mind. And that night the dream was different. He stood on a bridge under a twilight sky. The air smelled like spring rain. Across the bridge a little girl stood crying. Ian walked toward her slowly. "Are you lost?" he asked softly. The girl looked up, her eyes deep brown, filled with tears. "I can't find her." "Who?" "My friend," she whispered. "She promised she'd come back." Before Ian could speak again, a voice came from behind, soft and familiar. "You kept me waiting again." He turned, and there she was, Elena, only younger, like a reflection from another time. The dream rippled like water, showing flashes of moments: two children under a tree sharing an umbrella, a sketchbook falling into the mud, a promise whispered beside a train window. "When we grow up, let's find each other again." Then darkness. Ian woke with a start, heart racing. His sheets were damp with sweat. The images were faint but powerful, like fragments of a memory he'd once buried. A name from the past. Later that day, Ian sat with Alina at the cafe. She was sketching on a napkin, absent-minded, lost in thought. He hesitated before speaking. "Alina, can I ask you something?" She smiled without looking up. "You always can. When we were kids, did you ever live near Islamabad? Maybe around 2005. Her hand froze mid-sketch. Slowly she lifted her eyes. "Why?" "I had a dream," he said quietly, "about a bridge and two children, a girl who lost her friend." Her lips parted, trembling slightly. "What was her name?" Ian looked down, frowning. I can't remember, but she had the same eyes as you." Alina stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag, pulling out an old, folded photograph. She handed it to him. It showed two children, a boy and a girl, standing beside a railway track, smiling with ice creams in their hands. On the back of the photo, written in faded ink, "Ian and Alina, Summer '05. Ian's breath caught. His world tilted. "That's us." Elena nodded slowly, tears glimmering in her eyes. "I found this photo a year ago while cleaning my parents' house. I always wondered who you were. I used to dream about that summer, the last day we played together. You moved away, remember? You said we'd meet again someday." Ian felt everything crashing back, flashes of sunshine, laughter, the sound of a train leaving the station, and her small hand waving goodbye. "When we grow up, let's find each other again." The promise remembered. The cafe faded around them. They sat in silence, the noise of cups and chatter turning distant. Ian reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "I didn't forget you, Alina. I just forgot how to remember." She smiled through her tears. "You found me anyway." He nodded, voice soft. "Maybe our dreams kept the promise we couldn't." Outside, the evening rain began to fall, slow, rhythmic, like a lullaby from the past. They stepped out together, hand in hand, as if walking back into a memory finally completed. That night, Ian dreamed again. But this time there was no mystery, no field, no fog. Just the two of them, older now, sitting under the same tree where it all began. Elena rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you believe in fate now?" He smiled. "No, I believe in promises." And in the distance, the sound of a train echoed softly, not a goodbye this time, but the gentle music of two souls finally home. When love woke the morning, the days after their revelation felt like walking through sunlight after years of rain. Ian and Alina were inseparable. They laughed at how life had brought them full circle, from childhood strangers to dream companions, now real lovers rediscovering each other. They spent afternoons exploring art galleries, quiet parks, and the little cafe where their story had begun. But more than anything, they spent time simply being together, as if trying to fill the years they had lost. Sometimes they'd sit in silence, sharing a coffee, watching the world pass by. And in that silence, Ian would feel it, the same peace that he'd once only known in dreams. The fading dreams, but something strange began happening. Since the day they remembered the past, Ian hadn't seen the dream field again. Every night his sleep was deep, but empty, no whispers, no visions, no Alina waiting under the moon. At first he didn't mind. He had her now for real. But as days passed, he found himself missing that other world, the quiet beauty of it, the feeling that it had chosen him. One evening, as they walked along the lakeside, he mentioned it. "Alina," he said softly, "I don't dream of you anymore." She smiled, slipping her fingers through his. "That's because you don't need to." "What do you mean?" "You only saw me there because you hadn't found me here yet," she whispered. "The dream did its job. It led you back to me. Now the world doesn't have to remind us anymore." Her words sank into him like sunlight through clouds. Still, he couldn't help but ask, "Will I never see it again? The field, the bridge?" Alina stopped walking. The reflection of city lights shimmered in her eyes. "Maybe one last time. Dreams visit to end stories, too." The morning they stayed a week later, Alina asked him to visit her countryside home, an old wooden house her parents had left her. They decided to spend the weekend there, away from the noise of the city. It was quiet, surrounded by tall trees and the sound of wind moving through leaves. That night they sat outside, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. "I used to wish for you," Alina said suddenly. "Every year on my birthday, I'd look up and ask the sky to send me the boy I lost." Ian smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I used to dream of a girl who made me feel at peace. I thought I made her up." She leaned closer, whispering, "Maybe we both dreamed hard enough to pull each other back." They stayed like that, two souls who had once met in dreams, now awake beneath real stars. The night grew colder, but neither of them moved. The last dream before dawn, Ian woke to find Alina asleep beside him. He smiled and closed his eyes again. And when he did, the dream returned. He was standing once more in the moonlit field. The grass moved gently and the air shimmered with silver light. But this time he wasn't alone. Alina stood beside him, holding his hand. "You're here again," he said softly. She nodded, smiling. "This is the last one." He looked around. Everything was the same, the field, the stars, the calm, but it felt final. "So this is goodbye?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, it's good morning." He laughed quietly. "That's not how dreams work." "Maybe this one's different," she whispered. "Maybe this one wants to stay." The light around them began to rise like dawn, soft golden hues replacing silver. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. "When you wake up," she said, "don't look for me here anymore, look beside you." He wanted to answer, but his voice failed. The light grew brighter, flooding everything. Ian opened his eyes. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, painting golden lines across the room. Alina was still asleep beside him, peaceful, warm, real. He smiled. The dream was gone, but its promise had stayed. He leaned closer and whispered, "Good morning, Alina." She stirred, smiling before opening her eyes. "Good morning, Ian." And just like that, the dream had finally woken up. The life between dreams morning light spilled through the curtains, falling across Alina's sketchbook lying open on the table. Pages filled with drawings of stars, fields, bridges, and two silhouettes always standing together. Ian watched her from across the room as she painted, sunlight caught in her hair, the brush moving with easy grace. He thought about how different his life had become. Just a few months ago, his world was noise, work emails, sleepless nights, empty mornings. Now everything was quieter, softer. The sound of her laughter had replaced his loneliness. The peace of her presence had replaced the dreams that once haunted him. A home of quiet mornings, they decided to move into a small house near the lake, a place where the air smelled of rain and jasmine, where mornings began with coffee and ended with stories. Elena turned one room into an art studio. Ian set up his desk near the window. Sometimes they worked in silence, only the soft sound of her brush and his typing filling the air. Other times she'd play old songs on her record player, and they'd dance in the living room, no rhythm, no reason, just laughter echoing against the walls. Ian often caught himself thinking, if this is a dream, I don't want to wake up. But he knew it wasn't. It was real, the kind of real that felt like a miracle. The echo of dreams one evening, as the sky turned violet and the first stars appeared, Ian stood on their porch watching the lake shimmer in the distance. Elena joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked softly. "The dream," she nodded. "That world, the field, the light, the silence," he smiled. "Sometimes. But then I look at you and I realize I didn't lose that world, I just found it here." Elena looked up at him, eyes glimmering like the night sky. "Do you think it was real? That place?" "I think it was real enough to bring us together," he said. "And maybe that's all that matters." She smiled, and they fell into silence, the kind that says everything words can't. Letters to the Moon. Elena began a new painting series called Letters to the Moon. Each canvas was inspired by the dreams that had once connected them: fields of silver grass, skies that blended with memory, and always two figures walking hand in hand. When the series was exhibited, critics called it a love letter to something beyond time. But for Elena and Ian, it was simply their story painted in color and silence. At the final piece in the collection, she wrote a small note: "To the dream that didn't end when we woke up." The anniversary dream. On the anniversary of the day they found each other again, they returned to her family's countryside home, the same place where they'd shared their first real sunrise. That night they lit lanterns and watched them float into the dark sky. Ian looked at her and said, "If we ever get lost again, promise you'll find me." She laughed softly. "I always do." Later that night, as they slept side by side, something magical happened. The dream returned just for a moment. The same moonlit field, the same soft wind. But this time they weren't standing apart. They were walking together, hand in hand, laughing under the stars. No goodbyes, no mystery, no fading light, just peace. And when they woke the next morning, Elena whispered, smiling, "We met again, even in our dreams." Ian kissed her forehead. "Then maybe dreams just visit to remind us how lucky we are to wake up together." Forever. In every tomorrow, years had passed since Ian first saw Elena in that glowing dream field. Time had softened their lives into something peaceful. Mornings filled with sunlight and soft laughter. Evenings spent in quiet conversation beneath their favorite tree near the lake. But sometimes, when the night was too still, he'd look at her sleeping face and wonder, was she always meant to find me? Or did my heart call her here? He didn't know. He only knew that she had become his home. The letter he never sent. One rainy afternoon, while Elena was painting, Ian found an old notebook, the one he used to keep by his bed back when dreams were all he had. Inside were pages of half-written thoughts. "I saw her again. She smiled and I felt whole. Maybe she's not real, but she feels like hope." He smiled to himself, realizing how lost he had been and how she had turned that emptiness into something beautiful. He tore one blank page from the notebook and began to write again, not out of habit, but out of gratitude. "To the girl from my dreams, thank you for choosing to stay when I finally woke up." He folded the note and placed it between the pages of Elena's sketchbook. where she would find it one day when he wasn't looking. A whisper in the wind that evening, the rain cleared. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth. Ian and Alina sat by the lake, watching the reflection of the moon ripple on the water's surface. Alina leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, "You know, sometimes I still dream of that field." He smiled. "Do you?" She nodded. "But it's different now. It's brighter and I'm never alone." He squeezed her hand gently. "Maybe that's because I'm always there, even in your dreams." She looked up at him, and for a moment the world around them seemed to fade. Only the sound of their hearts remained, steady and warm. The last dream that night, something extraordinary happened again. Ian dreamed of the same field, the soft silver grass swaying, the stars humming quietly above. But this time, it wasn't empty. Alina was there, standing under the same moonlight as before, wearing the same white dress that had first appeared in his sleep so long ago. She turned as he approached, her smile the same calm, eternal, full of light. "You came," she said softly. "Always," he whispered back. They stood together under the moon, the wind swirling gently around them, carrying their laughter across the endless dreamscape. And then, just as the light began to bloom across the horizon, she said, "Dreams are only doors, Ian. Love is what walks through them." He reached for her hand, and for the first time it didn't fade. The dream didn't end. It became part of everything. Every tomorrow when Ian woke the next morning, sunlight flooded their room. Alina was still asleep beside him, her hand resting over his heart, just like in the dream. He smiled, closed his eyes again, and whispered, "Forever in every tomorrow." Because he now knew dreams weren't escapes, they were messages, and sometimes they became promises kept across lifetimes. When the stars remember us, the moon hung low that night, spilling silver light across the lake. Elena stood barefoot on the porch, her hair loose, her eyes lost somewhere beyond the water. Ian watched her quietly from the doorway, memorizing the way her fingers brushed against the railing, the way her breathing matched the rhythm of the wind. He had loved her in a dream once. Now, he loved her in every breath of waking life. But lately, the dreams had returned faintly, softly, as if calling him towards something he couldn't yet understand. The dream that changed one night, he saw the field again. The sky above was endless, filled with slow drifting stars. But this time, something was different. The air shimmered like memory, and the ground beneath his feet glowed faintly with light. He saw Alina standing far away, her dress fluttering, her face turned toward him. When she smiled, he felt warmth fill his chest. He ran to her, calling her name, but the wind carried his voice away. She reached out her hand, whispering, "It's almost time, Ian." He stopped. "Time. For what?" "For the dream to become the truth you always believed in." Before he could answer, the light grew brighter, not blinding, but peaceful, wrapping him in warmth. And then he woke up. A sign in the morning. The next morning, Alina found a small white feather on her pillow, soft, weightless, shimmering faintly in the sunlight. She picked it up, curious. "Did this come from outside?" Ian smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe it followed you back from the dream." Alina laughed softly, but her eyes glistened. "Maybe it did." They didn't talk about it again, but that feather stayed on her nightstand for years, a reminder that sometimes the world between dreams and reality isn't so far apart. A promise beneath the moon that night as they lay under the stars, Alina whispered, "If dreams end one day, promise me ours will live somewhere else." Ian turned to her, brushing his fingers through her hair. "They already do," he said. "In the way you breathe beside me, in the way the stars shine brighter when you laugh." She smiled through tears. "Then we'll never really end, will we?" He shook his head softly. "Never." And somewhere above them, the stars shimmered a little brighter, as if they had heard and remembered. The morning after the dream, the years flowed like gentle rain. Ian and Alina grew together, not just older but deeper. Their love matured into quiet rituals, morning tea on the balcony, handwritten notes left in books, shared laughter over things no one else would understand. But the dreams had stopped coming, and strangely, neither of them missed them, because their life had become the dream. A life remembered. One calm spring evening, they sat by the lake again, the same place where it had all begun. The world was quiet, golden, peaceful. Alina rested her head on Ian's shoulder and whispered, "Do you ever wonder what happens after dreams end?" Ian smiled. "I think dreams never really end. They just change shape like clouds turning into rain." She looked at him lovingly. "And what happens to us?" He took her hand and kissed it softly. "We turn into stories, the kind that people tell when they need to believe in something gentle." The last sleep that night, they fell asleep holding hands. Outside, the moon was full, glowing softly through the window. And when morning came, sunlight filled the room. The wind carried in the scent of jasmine. Two coffee cups sat on the table, side by side, but they never woke up separately again. They had drifted together peacefully, quietly into the same dream. The field once more in that dream, they were back where it had all begun, the moonlit field, the cool wind, the soft laughter of stars. Alina turned to him, smiling, her eyes full of peace. "We made it back," she whispered. He took her hand, looked around, and smiled. "No, we never left." And together they walked toward the rising light, two souls, one dream forever remembered. And so ends The Girl from My Dreams. A love that began in sleep and never truly woke up, because some connections are written not in time but in the quiet language of the heart. You've been listening to Pillow Talk Dreams, where every ending is just another dream beginning. Hey dreamer, before you drift away, if this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to subscribe to Pillow Talk Dreams. Here, every story is a soft whisper meant to calm your mind, to remind you that love still exists, and that you are never truly alone. If you smiled, cried, or felt peace tonight, please like this video and share it with someone who deserves a gentle dream too. Maybe a friend, a lover, or someone who just needs to breathe again. Your one share might be the reason someone finally sleeps peacefully tonight. So until the next story, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the night hold you. This is Pillow Talk Dreams, where stories never end. They just fall asleep with you.